It's Mrs. Carey, your speech language pathologist, and I wanted to let you know that I've missed you guys quite a lot the past few weeks. I guess it's been 3 weeks now. And it's Friday, when I know I haven't uploaded this video on a Friday, but it's Friday for me, and it's the end of a very, very long week. I'm sure it's been a long week for you guys too, so I thought I would end the week and possibly start your week with a book. So this is one of my favorite books. It's called The Little House, and I can tell you, I remember when I first heard it. My mom was a teacher, and I had to go to her school for some parent-teacher night, and they had to do something with all of the teachers' kids. So we sat in the library, and the librarian read this book to us. And since then, it's been one of my favorite books, and I just love picture books. So I thought I would share a story with you guys. And we're not going to do all of our comprehension questions nor vocabulary today. I just wanted to share a story with you guys. So here we go. The Little House, Story and Pictures by Virginia Lee Burton. So once there was a little house way out in the country. She was a pretty little house, and she was strong and well built. The man who built her so well said, "This little house shall never be sold for gold or silver, and she will live to see her great-great-grandchildren living in her." So there is the little house. The little house was very happy as she sat on the hill and watched the countryside around her. She watched the sun rise in the morning, and she watched the sun set in the evening. Day followed day, each one a little different from the one before, but the little house stayed just the same. In the nights, she watched the moon grow from a thin new moon to a full moon, then back again to a thin old moon, and when there was no moon, she watched the stars. There's the moons on a calendar, going from a thin moon to a new moon. Way off in the distance, she could see the lights of the city. The little house was curious about the city and wondered what it would be like to live there. So there's a picture of the little old house. I want you to look how far away she is from the city. These are the city lights. And she lives all the way out in the country. And it doesn't look like she has any neighbors next to her. So I want you guys to really think about that and remember that picture. Time passed quickly for the little house as she watched the countryside slowly change with the seasons. In the season, when the day grew longer and the sun warmer, she waited for the first robin to return from the south. She watched the grass turn green. She watched the buds on the trees swell and the apple trees burst into blossom. She watched the children playing in the brook. So you can see it's springtime. And many of my students have been studying the seasons. So you see the trees are getting pink blossoms on them, and the grass is green. In the long summer days, she sat in the sun and watched the trees cover themselves with leaves, and the white daisies cover the hill. She watched the gardens grow, and she watched the apples turn red and ripen. She watched the children swimming in the pool. So here's the summer season when it's hot outside and the trees are full of green leaves and the grass is green. And think about what you wear when it's hot outside. In the fall, when the days grew shorter and the nights colder, she watched the first frost turn the leaves to bright yellow and orange and red. She watched the harvest gathered and the apples picked. She watched the children going back to school. So in the fall, all of the leaves turn colors, and apples are ripe and they're ready to be picked off of the trees. And the little house is still kind of all by herself out in the country. In the winter, when the nights were long and the days short and the countryside covered with snow, she watched the children coasting and skating year after year. The apple trees grew old and the new ones were planted. The children grew up and went away to the city. And now at night, the lights of the city seemed brighter and closer. So her children have grown up and have left. So many, many years have passed by. One day, the little house was surprised to see a horseless carriage coming down the winding country road. So think about a carriage without a horse would be a car. Pretty soon there were more of them on the road and fewer carriages pulled by horses. Pretty soon along came some surveyors and surveyed a line in front of the little house. Pretty soon along came a steam shovel and dug a road through the hill covered with daisies. Then some trucks came and dumped big stones on the road. Then some trucks with little stones. Then some trucks with tar and sand. And finally a steamroller came and rolled it all smooth, and the road was done. So you can see up here they started to make the road, and they worked and worked and worked. So she used to have a dirt road in front of her house, and now it turned into a hard paved road. Now the little house watched the trucks and automobiles going back and forth to the city. Gasoline stations, roadside stands, and small houses followed the new road. Everyone and everything moved much faster now than before. So look at all the cars and traffic. I want you to think about, were there cars and traffic in the beginning of the book? And the city used to be way back here, but now look what has been added. Many houses have been added. More roads were made, and the countryside was divided into lots. More houses and bigger houses, apartment houses and tenement houses, schools, stores, and garages spread over the land and crowded around the little house. No one wanted to live in her. So think about how, I know a house doesn't have feelings, but in books, things that don't have feelings sometimes do, like animals. So think about her. Think about how she would feel. She's now crowded and nobody wants to live in her. And nobody wants to take care of her anymore. She couldn't be sold for gold or silver, so she just stayed there and watched. Now it was not so quiet and peaceful at night. Now the lights of the city were bright and very close, and the street lights shone all night. This must be living in the city, thought the little house, and didn't know whether she liked it or not. She missed the field of daisies and the apple trees dancing in the moonlight. Are there any apple trees around her anymore? Pretty soon, there were trolley cars going back and forth in front of the little house. They went back and forth all day and part of the night. Everyone seemed to be very busy, and everyone seemed to be in a hurry. So that's a trolley car. We don't have those in Florida. And they take people back and forth like buses. Whoa. Pretty soon, there was an elevated train going back and forth above the little house. The air was filled with dust and smoke, and the noise was so loud that it shook the little house. Now she couldn't tell when spring came, or summer, or fall, or winter. It all seemed to be about the same. If you look at that picture, there's no way of knowing what season it is because there's no trees and grass and flowers and leaves. Pretty soon there was a subway going back and forth underneath the little house. She couldn't see it, but she could feel and hear it. People were moving faster and faster. No one noticed the little house anymore. They hurried by without a glance. Now look at her windows. It looks like somebody cracked her windows. They probably threw things at them. Nobody seems to love the little house anymore. Pretty soon they tore down the apartment houses and tenement houses around the little house and started digging big cellars, one on each side. The steam shovels dug down 3 stories on one side and 4 stories on the other side. Pretty soon they started building up. They built up 25 stories on one side and 35 stories on the other. So they're building big skyscrapers on either side of the little house. Now the little house only saw the sun at noon and didn't see the moon or stars at night at all. Because the lights of the city were too bright, she didn't like living in the city. At night she used to dream of the country and the field of daisies and the apple trees dancing in the moonlight. The little house was very sad and lonely. Her paint was cracked and dirty. Her windows were broken and her shutters hung crookedly. She looked shabby, though she was just as good a house as ever underneath. So now look at the little house. She said she felt very sad and lonely. I wonder how that problem's going to be solved. She's not near any of her favorite land. She doesn't have any people that love her. That's a big problem. How do you think the problem's going to be solved? Then one fine morning in spring, along came the great-great-granddaughter of the man who built the little house so well. She saw the shabby little house, but she didn't hurry by. There was something about the little house that made her stop and look again. She said to her husband, "That little house looks just like the little house my grandmother lived in when she was a little girl. Only that little house was way out in the country on a hill covered with daisies and apple trees growing around." They found out that it was the very same house, so they went to the movers to see if the little house could be moved. The movers looked the little house all over and said, "Sure, this house is as good as ever. She's built so well we could move her anywhere." So they jacked up the little house and put her on wheels. Traffic was held up for hours, and they slowly moved her out of the city. I think this one page is why I was so interested in this book as a kid. I couldn't believe that they could actually put houses on wheels and move them. But it's true. At first, the little house was frightened. But after she got used to it, she rather liked it. They rolled along the big road, and they rolled along the little roads until they were way out in the country. When the little house saw the green grass and heard the birds singing, she didn't feel sad anymore. So if she wasn't sad anymore, how do you think she's feeling now? They went along and along, but they couldn't seem to find just the right place. They tried the little house here, and they tried her there. Finally, they saw a little hill in the middle of a field and apple trees growing around. "There," said the great-great-granddaughter. "That's just the place." "Yes, it is," said the little house to herself. A cellar was dug on top of the hill, and slowly they moved the house from the road to the hill. The windows and shutters were fixed, and once again they painted her a lovely shade of pink. As the little house settled down on her new foundation, she smiled happily. Once again she could watch the sun and moon and stars. Once again she could watch spring and summer and fall and winter come and go. Once again she was lived in and taken care of. So now, how does the little house feel? Never again would she be curious about the city. Never again would she want to live there. The stars twinkled above her. A new moon was coming up. It was spring, and all was quiet and peaceful in the country. The end. So that's my favorite book, The Little House. So I just wanted to read it to you guys, just so you could hear my voice, so you could see me, so you could enjoy a wonderful story. And hopefully I'll be doing lots more stories with videos, and hopefully some videos with you guys over the next few weeks, because I miss you guys, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.